This is Jason Faulkner, and I wanted to make another video to pump my content on YouTube. So, I'm going to grab my magic orange pencil. It's the only orange pencil in my set of any variety of orange. There was only one orange. The rest of them, there's a wide variety of different colors. It just jumped out at me, there is no shading variation in the orange. It's just the lone orange pencil. So, I wanted to pump some content, so I bought this nice Dremel kit. And I bought it exclusively for these three little babies right here. The 3 Dremel collets. Walmart didn't have anything with a collet in it whatsoever. And Harbor Freight used to sell just a blister pack with 3 or 4 collets, but they no longer carried that. And their smaller Dremel kits, they have like a quarter portion Dremel kit with some stuff in it. It has no collets. This big deluxe $20 Dremel kit's the only one that they have with the collets. And I bought this kit exclusively for the collets because I've had it with having to stop every time I wanted to change a bit and roll aluminum foil on the shaft of the bit real tight and then force it in my loose collet that came with a cheap Dremel that I bought from Harbor Freight that stripped. The collet that came with it was so cheap it stripped the second time I used it. So I finally achieved my goal of getting my 3 new collets. And this very wide, elaborate, beautiful, fully complementary Dremel accessory, which 20 years ago I bought one of these. And then it seems like every 5, 20 years ago I was very busy and we were doing a lot of work. So I bought like 3 or 4 in a row, and I would blow through one of these in a week, easy. I was doing so much work trying to survive that I just destroy all the bits. I mean, I wound up with a cardboard box or a metal coffee can, a plastic coffee can, full of my damaged Dremel stuff I'd keep in a pile. And when I grew desperate and I was in the middle of a project that was fix it to eat or you go hungry, I would often re-rummage through all what I consider to be my destroyed Dremel pile of crap. And I'd try to pull a piece out here and there and salvage it enough to get the job done. But it's a cheap kit, and I want to do a review on this kit in a different light than all these other guys are doing, about pointing out the obvious that these aren't flexible. Well, duh, it's a cheap Dremel kit, but it doesn't mean they're not usable. Look at that, I made that move. These are very usable. And I'm not going to go from a David Letterman countdown type thing. I'm going to tell you the information as I recollect it and know it. These are very usable. You just need a file. You need a good coarse file, because when you run this on the surface of something, yeah, there's grit here. It's going to cut, but not that long. It's going to knock that grit off, and then you're just going to be left with shaded cardboard with no grit. But that doesn't mean it's not usable. I'll tell you a trick. Have you an old file laying around, or even a good sturdy piece of sharp cornered metal? And with that Dremel bit, once you use the grindings off the edge, off the running edge of this, where it no longer bites and is being effective, stop. Find you your favorite file that you grow accustomed to using, or that little square odd piece of metal you think might knock that cardboard off there and down to fresh grit. And guess what? Within a second, you're making this tool useful again. Yep. There's tip 1. Let's see if this one rolls. Yeah, it rolls. Cool. So, I'm very knowledgeable about this particular Dremel set. I've had so many of them. And I've taught myself so many hacks. You might consider this to be the most impressive piece of toolkit in this kit. It's not. This is an oddity. Yeah, you can sever a little bolt maybe with the edge of this, but that's going to wear off, and then you're left with just something that this will do, or these will do, or these will momentarily do before they explode. I've discovered most of the time. If you're in a pinch and you're really wanting something ground down, these are only going to buy you a reprieve. You're not going to cut through thick metal with them before they pop apart, and hopefully you're wearing safety glasses. These little things here are dangerous. They explode so readily, and they're dangerous. And the little hard disk ones that aren't like this, that are the cheap ones, they're super dangerous. You got to be pretty desperate to want to cut something or grind something down to use these. I always go for these. These are splendid. These are worth buying this kit on their own. You know, these don't mess around. I've done a lot of work with these. These are my go-to pieces when I buy this kit. I know I put one of these on one of these collets, and that baby's going to cut some metal. Yep, these are superior. I love these. They're cheap, but they're just as good as quality as any of them. Yep, those are awesome. I've done so much work with these, it's amazing. I always love these, knowing that they're in the kit. And they're a lot safer to use than these. These are hard to break apart. You can put these in a bind and make it stop your Dremel, and they'll still be usable. I'd always wear safety glasses either way, but you can do a lot with these. The tight areas you can get in with these, especially if you got a flex shaft, cutting bolts and dislodging stuck brake caliper parts and whatnot. It's a good thickness to sever on the edgewise in between a corroded up brake caliper pin, just enough to drop it in there so you can, let's say you're trying to drive a brake caliper pin out, and it's just like rusted solid to the brake caliper housing. This is a good size that if you put it on your Dremel and you go cautiously down into that narrow slit to where that pin merges with the housing that holds it, you can sever in between the two with that just enough to make a difference between driving that pin out and just beating on it and disfiguring it. I've done that with these before. Very handy tool. You gotta be cautious, you get it in a pinch and you're gonna have to turn the Dremel up and figure something out to work it out a little bit. Usually you can walk the wheel out, take a glove and roll your thumb or finger up the edge of it toward the pinch, and it'll walk itself loose. Great pieces though. They sever bolts, thick bolts even. If you're persistent and steady and even aimed at the slice straightness in it, you're not going to jam it easily, and it'll just keep cutting. This cuts like a champ. And these drill bits, where are the drill bits? The drill bits, they're junk. I avoid these little drill bits. If you're trying to drill through something, you might get into so much depth, even oiling it, but it's going to dull on you. I never did like using these. If you're drilling into wood, yeah, but normally when we buy something like this, we're messing with metal. We're doing mechanicking. These diamond bits, love them. They sever, slice, clean. Let's talk about cleaning motorcycle carburetors. You can use these to clean the gunk. When you got the corner of an inside float bowl of a carburetor, you can use these. You just don't want to press hard. But these will dislodge gunk. So will the green ones. But they do indeed wear out quick. But I use these last. When I'm cleaning, I'll do my rough cleaning with the diamond bits and these steel brushes. Use your brushes first to get through the gunk. Spray some WD-40 in it or Wesley's bleach white tire sidewall cleaner in your carburetor after it's torn apart, obviously. And size it up first. You know, like if there's a 1/4 inch of gum in the bottom of your carburetor, you know you've got a job first off. It's going to be messy as hell. I usually use this one first. I get this in all the areas I can, and I know it's going to gum it up, and it's not going to last long. It will if you go slow. You know, turn it on a mediocre speed, a low RPM, but not too low. You know, if you try to drop this into something with too low an RPM, it's gonna cause fatigue on the tips and the length of the brush, and it's gonna, you know, bend your brush out of shape. If you go too fast, your brush is going to mushroom out and make it unusable. There's a happy medium speed that you want to find pretty quick while you're dropping this in a carburetor bottom full of gum. You don't need carburetor cleaner. Bleach white or WD-40. Give it a good coat, a good wet bed of WD-40 on top of the gum. Drop this in there and just see what it does. You know, test how hard your gum is in the carburetor by easing this in and out a few test strokes. And if it sinks on in easily to the bottom, just sort of move it around. You know, work your way out. And when you run out of room, stop your Dremel and go to a smaller one and clean up all your corners with the narrower one. And you'll have to go a little slower with this one. You know, you don't want to force feed it too much because that is prone to disfigure this brush more readily. That's your fine stainless brush. And this knocks out 99% of the rest of the inside. You know, your fine corners and stuff. And you'll always see leftover deposits. And that's where you go to something like this. Your fine, narrow Dremel diamond bits. You don't want to force them in. You're just letting it scale it. Just shading it, you know. Just tracing it. See what it does. If you ain't covering enough distance with it, if you got a big corner of gum left, go to a broader one, you know. Go to something like that, or even your truly round one. Just keep it pointed and flat contoured so it don't cut with a leading edge. You just want the face of it. You just want the face of it to get in there in them tight corners and just sort of brush it around. Let it tear that stuff loose. And, you know, during the process of cleaning the inside of a carburetor with WD-40, it's so messy. It's like a 10-step process. The first time you're going to go in there with this and tear out the guts of the majority of the gunk. But then pull back, retreat, get your Wesley's bleach white, spray it all down, let it sit for a minute or two, no more than that, because it is corrosive to aluminum to a degree. I'd rather use warm water. It helps break the gum loose more readily fast, but you don't need to. Cold water. If it's a cold day, you want to use warm water or wait for a warm day. Let your Wesley's bleach white sit and absolve whatever it can. Spray it out with a water hose and go again. Throw another layer of WD-40 in there. Feel free to experiment. You know, bounce around between bits a little like I would. I say keep it loose, fast, and easy. You know, pull 3 or 4 of your what you think might work for you out, set it in a little pile off to the side, and just know that you're going to be switching bits quite frequently to achieve the objective. That's to get all those tight little corners and stuff, and those stems and stuff, you know, your air stems and your mixture stems. You want to get all those real good down the length of them. There ain't nothing in this kit that's going to clean the inside of any of those tiny stems, those venturis. You have to get you a couple of pieces of silver wire or some sort of guitar wire with striations on it. Some stuff that'll fit in there, and you can work that WD-40 until you get it opened up all the way. Then rinse it out with bleach white and water, and then once you get it open, you can take your bleach white and spray it down in there and let it sit for 30 seconds, a minute, whatever. Flush it with water again. And then you can go back to WD-40 and do the same. Okay. That's some good information. These, they explode just as readily as these. You got to be very cautious with them. They hold up. They'll cut. You know, if you got some sort of shaded metal in something, or oblong metal, or out of round piece that you want to reshape a little, they do good. You can oil them too. You can oil any of these, and it does make a little difference in cutting or abrasive factors. Oiling stuff, it helps reduce the wear on the bit, on your bits a little. No matter what bits you use, you can oil any of this. Anything in this kit you can oil. It ain't gonna hurt it. If you oil these, it ain't gonna hurt it if you're cutting metal. These are gonna fly apart and tear up as they do anyway. You might make them last a little longer if you spray a little oil or WD-40 on it. It's not gonna hurt them at all. But they are cheap. They do tear apart easy if you overpressure it or put it at an odd angle. It'll want to unwrap the layering that these are matted from. You know, they're formed by several layering of materials, nylon sheets and whatever they got this made out of. Abrasives, obviously. They're effective. These cut wood great. If you want to knock the burrs off a piece of wood, you know, the fine shading from like after you run a piece of wood through a table saw, does it quick, fast, and easy. They cut metal real good too. They just don't hold up. You know, once you get that heat on them and that odd pressure, you just want to push a little further than it'll take. It'll unravel or it'll just knock the abrasive off. This, don't know, don't care. I smashed one of these up the other day trying to make a grinding paste out of it. It didn't work. Maybe you can sharpen a fish hook with it. I don't know. That's an important tool. I've already got one. This end is useless. Yeah, it works, but nothing like a regular little miniature pocket screwdriver, which is more handy. It tightens the collet up. I've been trying to, with the one that came with my Dremel, you know, I just learned it's a little nuisance to get a hold of. It's hard to pick up off a flat surface of a table. But to tighten your collet lock, you know, it resists you deforming your collet lock with using wire pliers or vice grips or anything. So it's good to try to stay to your principles and use this to tighten your Dremel collet lock, because it keeps you from ruining your trueness on your collet lock. These little guys, you know, limited use. I've cleaned insides of carburetors with this also. These, whatever. whatever, polish your chrome bumper, I guess, or your chrome wheels on your motorcycle, whatever, you know. Usually when you dope them with some sort of cleaning compound, it causes too much drag in your, where's it at? Your spiral tool that these thread on. It just strips, and once you strip it one side, you can try to thread it on the other, but it's going to strip even easier, I've learned. But this little guy, this is a stout little thing, you know. You coat some WD-40 or Wesley's bleach white on this, and it'll clean and clean and clean some more. It's just a better built apparatus than these. And you'll be impressed how much stuff you can do with that. But at some point, it will strip, and you might as well just throw it away. These I never pull out. I'm not looking to make nothing that fancy. I don't clean motorcycle mag wheels. So I've never really had a need for those. This oddball, I don't think any of these have self-adhesive anything. No, these don't stick. I don't think they do. I don't remember ever sticking them on anything. You got to use these with these screw top collets, like you'd use for these or these. These are your stems for these, your sanding drums, and they work. But if you're doing a lot of heavy work and they get dirty, and the more you use them, the more difficult it becomes to put these on those. So you want to try to be careful using these. You don't want to abuse them. But at some point, they just get real funky anyway. Especially if you're doing a lot of work, they'll start frustrating you. These are great. These are normally my go-to. Like if I snap a bolt off, I can surgically grind a bolt out and leave the threads perfect, and just use a little pick or something to pick the remnants of the bolt out, and it saves you from having to retap it, and then you've got a problem thread, so you want to put a lot of extra oil or WD-40 in there. The next bolt you want to try to tighten through there and work it in and out enough until it freely goes all the way that it needs to. And you can use this for anything, This is like the last chance before you're really into problems, That's what this is. This is your last chance. Or like if you're cleaning a motorcycle carburetor, it's it's just process. Take your time, clean, rinse, and re-clean and re-oil. And depending on how dirty and gummy the carburetor is, you'll get there sooner or later, and you'll appreciate a good running carburetor. There it is, It's a good buy for $20. It gives you everything you need to do something with, but nothing's ever enough, You're still going to need extra bits here and extra bits there. Might as well collect as many as you can and have them around. I guess it depends on your workload, too. Some people will buy this and never use it, or use it once in a lifetime, and other people like me, this is my 11th one, 12th, I don't know how many, of this type. It's an amazing tool. A Dremel is very handy to have around, especially if you're poor and you want to do your own mechanicing. It's a must-have. It's the go-to. Go to Harbor Freight and get you one. I had a fantasy, you know, maybe I can search for Lowe's or somewhere else and find like a master real Dremel kit, tackle box looking thing. Nah. $50, $60, $109, whatever. $20, you're good to go. And here's my color pencils. I got them laid out in their shadings. Got my yellows separated from the greens and the browns, and then the blues, then your grays, and your whitish, whatever's. Yeah, there's a white one. Then your reds, and then you got one orange. There it is. Don't forget your pencil sharpener. This one has a knob on it, and it'll sharpen it pointy or rounded. You just have to turn the dial. Isn't that something? Someone had to do a lot of thinking to figure that out. Well, I hope you enjoyed yourself. They taped the corners of the box, so I had to tear it. And now my box ain't never going to seal right. I don't appreciate that. But that's here nor there. Well, there's my video. Almost a half an hour for this, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it informative. If you have any questions or want to know any specific knowledge of how to make this useful in any particular predicament, feel free to leave a comment, and I'll give you my advice if I have any on the situation. My name's Jason Faulkner, and at Shop Weasel, there's my shopping bag holders. And I appreciate your time. Hope you enjoy my video. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.